There's a reason the most powerful people you know don't tell you everything. They move in silence. They keep their cards close. They let their results speak, while everyone else is broadcasting every thought, every plan, every detail of their life. And here's what most people miss. Every time you reveal something, you're not just sharing information. You're giving away leverage. You're creating expectations. You're opening yourself up to judgment, interference, energy that could have been spent building. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that privacy wasn't about hiding. It was about protecting what matters from the noise, from the opinions, from the people who don't have your best interest at heart, but love to comment anyway. And in a world that rewards oversharing, that mistakes visibility for value, the ability to keep certain things to yourself is not just smart, it's survival. It's how you maintain your edge, your focus, your power. And if you're ready to learn what the disciplined keep private and why it makes them untouchable, then stay right here. Because what you're about to discover will change how you move through the world. We live in the age of exposure. Everyone's sharing everything: their morning routine, their relationship status, their income, their struggles, their wins, their breakfast. People have convinced themselves that transparency equals authenticity, that if you're not posting it, it didn't happen, that privacy means you have something to hide. But here's the truth. They're not selling you. Oversharing doesn't make you relatable. It makes you accessible, and accessible means controllable. When people know everything about you, they know exactly how to approach you, how to manipulate you, how to distract you, how to throw you off your path. They know your triggers, your insecurities, your plans. And suddenly, you're not moving in freedom. You're moving in reaction to everyone's opinions about what you shared. Think about it. The moment you announce a goal, people start projecting. Some will doubt you. Some will discourage you. Some will tell you why it won't work. And even the ones who support you, they're watching now, waiting, expecting. And that external pressure, that weight of performance, can kill momentum before you even start. The Stoics practiced something most people today have forgotten: restraint, not just in action, but in speech, in disclosure, in what they allowed the world to see. Marcus Aurelius was the emperor of Rome. He had absolute power, and yet his deepest thoughts, his struggles, his philosophy, he kept those private. He wrote them for himself in what we now call meditations. And those writings weren't meant for an audience. They were his internal work, his private dialogue with himself. And that privacy, that refusal to perform his inner life for public consumption, is part of what made him great. He wasn't seeking validation. He was seeking truth. And truth doesn't need an audience. Epictetus taught his students, keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must, and speak briefly, not because silence makes you mysterious, but because words once spoken cannot be taken back. They create ripples, consequences, expectations, and the more you speak, the more you give away, not just information, but power. So let me show you the 7 things that powerful people keep private. The 7 areas where silence isn't weakness. It's strategy, where privacy isn't hiding, it's protecting. And where your refusal to share becomes the foundation of something most people will never understand. Unshakable personal sovereignty. The first thing you keep private is your next move. You know what kills most dreams? It's not failure, it's announcement. People love to talk about what they're going to do, the business they're starting, the weight they're losing, the book they're writing, the change they're making. And every time they announce it, they get a little hit of dopamine. People congratulate them, they get encouragement, They feel accomplished. But here's the problem. They haven't actually done anything yet. They just talked about it. And the brain doesn't know the difference between the reward of doing and the reward of telling. So the motivation fades, the pressure builds, and the thing they announced with so much confidence quietly dies, while they're left explaining why it didn't work out. When you share your plans before you've built anything, you invite interference. People will give you unsolicited advice. They'll tell you why it won't work. They'll project their fears onto your vision. They'll ask for updates, and suddenly your private mission becomes a public performance. And performance kills authenticity. You start moving to prove them wrong or to meet their expectations, instead of moving because it's what you know you need to do. The goal shifts from internal alignment to external validation, and that shift is poison. The powerful move in silence. They don't announce, they execute. They don't talk about the business they're building, they just build it. And when it's real, when it's undeniable, when it's too late to interfere, that's when people find out. Not before, not during, after. And by then, there's nothing to debate, nothing to discourage, nothing to disrupt. It's already done. And that kind of discipline, that ability to hold your vision without needing to share it, that's rare. And that rarity is power. Seneca once wrote, "If you wish to be loved, love." And the same principle applies to goals. If you wish to achieve them, protect them, keep them close, keep them private, keep them away from people who haven't earned the right to speak into your future. Because most people haven't done what you're trying to do. They don't understand the path. They don't have the vision, and their doubt, even when it's well-meaning, is a weight you don't need to carry. Think about the last time you shared a big goal. How many people actually supported it without conditions, without skepticism, without their own fears bleeding into the conversation? Probably not many. And that's not because people are bad. It's because most people are stuck. And stuck people can't imagine someone else breaking free. So they consciously or unconsciously try to keep you where they are. It's not malice. It's just human nature. But you don't have to participate in it. You can move quietly, build quietly, prove quietly. And when the work speaks for itself, you won't need to say a word. Your results will do the talking. And by then, the doubters will either respect you or disappear. Either way, you win. Because you didn't waste energy defending your vision. You spent it building it. And the difference between those two paths is the difference between dreamers and doers. The second thing you keep private is your income and financial situation. Nothing invites more problems than people knowing what you make. Suddenly, everyone's got an opinion on how you should spend it, what you should invest in, why you should help them out. And if you're doing well, people start treating you differently. Some with envy, some with entitlement, some with resentment. And if you're struggling, people treat you differently too, with pity, with judgment, with unsolicited advice that makes you feel smaller. Either way, you lose, because now your worth, in their eyes, is tied to your bank account. And that's a game you don't want to play. Money is one of the most emotionally charged topics in human relationships. And the moment you make it public, you open yourself up to dynamics you can't control. Family starts asking for loans. Friends start expecting you to pay. Co-workers start resenting your success or feeling superior if you're behind. And none of that energy serves you. It just creates friction, distance, misunderstanding. And the worst part is, you invited it by sharing something that should have stayed private. The powerful understand that financial privacy is a boundary, not a secret. You're not hiding your money, you're protecting your peace. Because the moment people know your numbers, they stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as a resource or a comparison. And both of those strip away the authenticity of the relationship. When people don't know what you make, they relate to you as you, not as your financial status. And that's where real connection lives. Beyond the transactions, beyond the judgments, beyond the projections. There's another layer to this. When you keep your financial situation private, you remove the external pressure to perform. People can't question your choices if they don't know your situation. You can live below your means without being called cheap. You can splurge on something that matters to you without being called wasteful. You can make financial decisions based on your values, not their opinions. And that freedom, that ability to move without justification, is priceless. Marcus Aurelius had immense wealth, but he rarely spoke of it. He focused on virtue, on character, on what kind of man he was becoming, not what he owned. And that focus is what made him respected, not his riches, but his restraint, his ability to have much but need little, to live with abundance but not be defined by it. And that's only possible when you stop broadcasting your financial reality to people who don't need to know. Here's a simple rule. If someone needs to know your financial situation, they'll be in a position where it's necessary. A business partner, a spouse, a financial advisor. But your coworker, your distant cousin, the person you went to high school with, they don't need to know. And their curiosity is not your responsibility to satisfy. Let them wonder. Let them assume. Let them think whatever they want. Because your bank account, your investments, your debts, your wins, they're yours. And the moment you make them public, you've turned something private into a topic for public consumption. And once it's out there, you can't take it back. You can only manage the fallout. So keep it private. Keep it yours, and let your life reflect your values, not your income. Because at the end of the day, wealth without wisdom is just noise. But wisdom, protected by privacy, that's power. The third thing you keep private is your personal philosophy and spiritual practice. Everyone's got beliefs about how life works, what matters, what doesn't. And the moment you start sharing yours, especially if they're unconventional, you open yourself up to debate, to mockery, to people trying to change your mind. And here's the thing. Your beliefs, your practices, the rituals that ground you, they're not up for discussion. They're not meant to convince anyone. They're meant to guide you. And the more you explain them, the more you dilute their power. Because now you're defending them instead of living them. When you tell people you meditate, they'll ask why. When you tell them you read Stoic philosophy, they'll call it outdated. When you tell them you pray or journal or practice gratitude, someone will always have a comment, always have a counter, always have a reason why their way is better. And suddenly, you're not protecting your practice, you're justifying it. And justification is exhausting. It takes the sacred and makes it a debate topic. The powerful keep their inner work private, not because they're ashamed, but because they understand that depth doesn't need validation. You don't need people to understand your philosophy. You need it to work for you. And it works best when it's protected from the noise, from the skeptics, from the people who've never done the work but love to critique it. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." Notice he didn't say, "Announce it to the world, and then do what you have to do." He said, "Say to yourself, keep it internal, keep it private, and let your actions prove what your words don't need to your spiritual practice. Whatever it is, it's your anchor. It's the thing that keeps you grounded when life gets chaotic. And the moment you make it public, you invite interference. People will question it. People will challenge it. People will try to pull you into defending something that needs no defense because it's working. And working speaks louder than explaining. Think about the people you admire, the ones with deep inner calm, who seem unshakable. They don't talk about their practices. They just live them. You see the fruit, but you don't see the roots. And that's intentional, because the roots, the real work, is too sacred to perform for an audience. There's also this. When you keep your beliefs private, you avoid being labeled. The moment you tell people you're into Stoicism, you become the Stoic guy. And now everything you do is filtered through that lens. You make one mistake, and someone's there to say, "I thought you were all about Stoicism." And suddenly, you're not a human being with a practice. You're a representative of a philosophy. And that pressure, that expectation, can turn something life-giving into something performative. And performance kills authenticity. Carl Jung once said, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another." There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. And that's the truth. Your path is yours. What works for you? What grounds you? What brings you peace? It doesn't need to make sense to anyone else. And the moment you stop trying to make it make sense, the moment you stop explaining, stop defending, stop broadcasting, you reclaim the power of your practice, and it becomes what it was always meant to be, a tool for your transformation, not a topic for their entertainment. So keep it private, keep it sacred, and let the way you move through the world be the only proof anyone needs that whatever you're doing, it's working. The fourth thing you keep private is your romantic life and relationships. Nothing deteriorates faster than a relationship that's lived in public. The moment you start posting every date, every milestone, every up and down, you've invited the world into something that should be between two people. And now, you're not building intimacy, you're performing it. And performance kills connection. People will have opinions on your relationship. People who've never met your partner. People who don't know the full story. People who are projecting their own experiences onto your situation. And suddenly, you're not moving based on what's right for you. You're moving based on what looks right to them. You stay in situations you should leave because you've made it public, and leaving would mean admitting failure. Or you leave situations you should work through because the comments convinced you it's not worth it either way. You've lost sovereignty. The powerful keep their relationships private, not because they're hiding, but because they understand that love doesn't need an audience. Real connection happens in private, in the small moments, the hard conversations, the quiet mornings, the difficult growth. And none of that translates to a post. None of that fits in a caption. So why try? Why reduce something deep to something digestible for people scrolling? There's another layer. When you broadcast your relationship, you create expectations. People expect you to always be happy, to always be perfect. And the moment you're not, the moment there's conflict, or distance or growth, people start asking questions. Are you okay? Did something happen? And now you're managing their perceptions instead of managing your relationship. You're explaining instead of experiencing. And that distance, that gap between what's real and what you're showing, creates disconnection. Not just with others, but with yourself. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." And you can't enjoy the present if you're constantly curating it for public consumption. If every moment is a potential post, Every experience is filtered through, how will this look? You're not present, you're performing. And your partner feels it, because they're not being loved, they're being featured, and there's a difference. The most solid relationships, the ones that last, they're quiet. You don't see them online. You don't hear the details. You just know they're together, and they're solid, because they've protected what matters. They've built something real, in private, away from the noise, away from the opinions. And that protection is what allows depth, and depth is what lasts. So if you're in a relationship worth keeping, keep it private. Let the world see that you're happy, but don't give them the manual. Don't give them the details. Don't give them access to something that belongs to just two people. Because the moment you do, it's no longer just yours, and what's not protected can't grow. The fifth thing you keep private is your past pain and failures. Everyone's been through something. Everyone's got scars. And while it's important to process, to heal, to integrate those experiences, broadcasting them to the world is not healing. It's performing vulnerability. And there's a difference between being open in the right context and being open to everyone. And when you make your pain public, you invite people to define you by it. The moment you tell everyone about your failures, your traumas, your wounds, you become that story in their mind. You're no longer seen as who you are. Now you're seen as who you were then. And every time they look at you, they see the struggle, not the strength. They see the breakdown, not the rebuild. And that perception, even when it's sympathetic, limits you. Because now you're the person who went through that thing, and people treat you accordingly. There's also this. When you share your pain publicly, you give people ammunition. Not everyone wishes you well. Not everyone wants to see you rise. And the details you share in a vulnerable moment can become weapons. Later, people will bring it up. They'll use it to discredit you. They'll remind you of it when you're trying to move forward. And suddenly, the thing you shared to heal becomes the thing that keeps you stuck. The powerful understand that healing happens in private, with trusted people, with therapists, with mentors, with close friends who've earned the right to hold your story. But the world hasn't earned that right. The world doesn't need to know your lowest moments, to respect your current strength. In fact, the less they know, the more powerful your presence becomes. Because you're not defined by your past. You're defined by how you show up now. Marcus Aurelius dealt with immense pain, betrayal, loss, pressure. And yet his private writings reveal a man working through it quietly, asking himself hard questions, processing without performing. And that private work is what built his character. If he had announced every struggle, every doubt, every fear, he would have been seen as weak. But because he kept it private, because he worked through it internally, he emerged stronger. And that strength was undeniable. Here's what most people get wrong. They think sharing their pain makes them relatable, and sometimes it does. But it also makes them predictable. People start seeing you as the wounded one, the one who's still recovering, the one who needs to be handled with care. And while compassion is good, pity is poison. It robs you of agency. It keeps you in a victim narrative even when you've moved beyond it. So protect your story, protect your healing, and share it only when it serves a purpose, when it helps someone who's in the exact place you were. But even then, be selective. Be intentional, because your pain is not content. It's part of your journey, and that journey deserves to be honored, not exploited. The sixth thing you keep private is your good deeds and generosity. If you help someone and then tell everyone about it, you didn't do it for them. You did it for you, for the recognition, for the praise, for the proof that you're a good person. And that's not generosity, that's performance. Real kindness happens in silence. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't need validation. It just moves because it's the right thing to do. The moment you broadcast your generosity, you cheapen it. You turn something sacred into something transactional. You help someone, but the real reward isn't in their relief. It's in the likes, the comments, the recognition. And that shift from selfless to self-serving changes everything. Not just for you, but for them. Because now they know you told people. Now their struggle, their need is public. And that exposure can feel like betrayal. Jesus taught this principle in the Sermon on the Mount. When you give to the needy, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be in secret. And that's wisdom. Because generosity, protected by privacy, remains pure. It's not about you, it's about the person you helped. And keeping it private honors that. There's another reason the powerful keep their good deeds quiet. It protects them from expectation. The moment people know you help, they start expecting it. They start asking. They start assuming you're the go-to person for every problem. And suddenly, your generosity becomes an obligation. You're not giving freely. Anymore, you're giving because you've built a reputation. And reputation is pressure. So you keep it private. You help when you can. You give when it's right. But you don't announce it. You don't track it. You don't use it as proof of your character. Because character doesn't need proof. It shows up in action. And the people who matter will feel it without you needing to say a word. Seneca wrote, "Wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. And true kindness doesn't need recognition. It just needs to happen." So the next time you help someone, resist the urge to post about it. Resist the urge to tell your friends. Resist the urge to make it a story. Just let it be. Let it exist in the quiet space between you and them, and trust that the impact is enough. Trust that the act itself is the reward. Because when you give without announcement, you're not just helping someone, you're building something deeper. Integrity, humility, character that can't be faked and doesn't need to be advertised. The seventh thing you keep private is your daily routine and systems. Everyone wants to know the secret, the morning routine, the productivity hacks, the systems that make you effective. And while some of that can be shared, the powerful know that keeping the details private protects the magic. Because the moment everyone knows your routine, they start copying it. They start asking about it. They start expecting you to stick to it. And suddenly, what was a personal practice becomes a public standard. Your routine is yours. It's built for your life, your goals, your rhythm, and it doesn't need to be anyone else's blueprint. When you share it, people start measuring you by it. They notice. When you deviate, they question. When you change it, and now you're stuck defending why you adjusted something that was never meant to be rigid. The discipline is in the consistency, not the publicity. You don't need to announce that you wake up at 5 a.m. to actually do it. You don't need to post your workout to get the benefit. You don't need to share your reading list to absorb the wisdom. The work happens in private, and the results speak in public. And that's the order that matters. There's also this. When you keep your systems private, you protect your edge. If everyone knows how you operate, they know how to disrupt you. They know when you're unavailable. They know your patterns. They know your rhythms. And in competitive environments, that information is leverage. You're better off moving in silence, letting your results create the mystery. Letting people wonder how you're so consistent, so focused, so effective. And never giving them the manual, because the manual is yours. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. And habits don't need an audience. They just need repetition. So protect your routine, protect your systems, and let the consistency compound in private until it becomes undeniable in public. Here's the truth that ties all 7 together. Privacy is not about hiding, it's about protecting what matters from what doesn't. Every time you share something personal, you're opening a door, and not everyone who walks through that door has good intentions. Some are curious, some are envious, some are just bored. But very few are there to actually support you in a way that serves your growth. The Stoics taught that the wise man is content with himself, and part of that contentment is not needing external validation, not needing to share every detail, not needing the world to see your struggles, your wins, your process, because you know, you see it, you feel it, and that's enough. When you keep these 7 things private, your next move, your finances, your beliefs, your relationships, your past, your generosity, your systems, you create a fortress around your peace, around your focus, around your power. And that fortress isn't built to keep people out. It's built to keep you centered, to keep you aligned, to keep you moving without the weight of everyone else's opinions. Epictetus said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." And the same is true for attention, for validation, for disclosure. The less you need to share, the more you have to build. With the less you perform, the more you become. So the next time you feel the urge to announce, to explain, to broadcast, pause. Ask yourself, does this serve me, or does this serve my ego? Does this protect my path, or does this expose it to interference? And if the answer is exposure, if the answer is ego, keep it private, keep it close, keep it yours. Because the world doesn't need to know everything about you to respect you. In fact, the less they know, the more they'll wonder and wonder. Curiosity, mystery, those are forms of power that only exist when you've learned the ancient art of keeping your mouth shut and your work loud. Move in silence. Let your results shock them. Let your growth speak. Let your peace radiate. And when they ask how you did it, smile and keep moving. Because the ones who need to know already do, and the ones who don't never will. Stay focused, stay grounded, and remember, the quiet work you do in private becomes the power they'll never understand in public.